Hello, welcome to the 30% Blender software tutorial. In this session, I want to teach you about the interface and add-ons. Alright, welcome to the second session of the tutorial. In this part, I want us to talk together about the user interface and add-ons. I open the Edit Preferences or Preferences section where the add-ons section is available. Whenever we want to install any add-ons, we can add them through this section. Over time, you'll learn what these add-ons are. In the System section, guys, this part tells you how many graphics cards you have and whether you want to use your graphics card or not. I went ahead and selected one of my graphics cards and specified that this graphics card should be used by Blender and the other one should remain free in case I want to do CGI work or use After Effects. For example, this one won't be used and I'll work with the other one. In the sections where, like in all software, we have a Ctrl plus Z function, in Blender software as well, by default, you can go back up to 32 times with Ctrl plus Z. So I want to see if I can increase the number of Ctrl plus Z undos or not. In the Undo System section, it can go up to 256 times. Now I'll set it back to the beginning again. Why did I set it back? Because the higher I set the number of undos, the more cache it uses, and then my system might freeze. When you've progressed further and you're working with tools like subdivision, does your system start to lag? When your system lags, you can come to the viewport section, go to the subdivision part, and disable this graphics card option. When you disable it, the subdivisions you use, or basically when you work with Blender, it won't freeze anymore. Let's move on to the interfaces available for importing meshes. I haven't told you yet how to import Apchic into Blender. We'll cover that in another session. We have a shortcut key called N. When you press N, this section will appear for you. Now if I drag this out and open it further, you'll see that it shows you all the items you're working with. When you click this, it will open and close for you. By holding your mouse and this arrow, you can increase or decrease this section, right? It's a marker. Actually, you have an anchor point, or as it's called in Persian, a marker. By holding Shift and right-clicking, you can move it around. When I hold Shift and right-click with my mouse, I can move it. In the View section as well, or Tools View, see, when I select this, it also moves this section for me. With this section, I can move directly from the View section itself. By holding the Shift shortcut key and right-clicking, you can do it. You can move this. Alright, so let's now proceed and move on to another important section that we genuinely need to thoroughly work with and address. Guys, I have moved this particular anchor point, and in order to place it precisely in its correct and intended position, I will now press Shift plus S, and then I will click on Cursor to World Origin. It goes right back to its default previous state and sets itself in place. Alright, the section we interact with the most is our Layers or Collections section I recommend that you always name your collections, so that when you have many collections or objects, you can find them easily with their distinct names. By double-clicking on a collection, you can readily do this. There's another important section, which is our toolbox, ranging from moving to rotating. We'll work on this together in the upcoming session. This section here is called Properties, and wherever I go, these icons will appear. The first part is the Toolbox section, where I can create its divisions. The second part is where you do the rendering. For example, if I want to render with Eevee, or do a cycles render, or render in the Workbench section. I'll go through all of these one by one in their own sessions at the appropriate time. I'll explain it to you, but keep in mind that, for example, rendering is for your final output, and Eevee gives us a simple render. Cycles gives us a high quality render similar to a V-Ray render in 3D Max. Workbench is just the section where you want to quickly see your work in its default state, for example, to check what your output looks like and within what range. This is the environment you work with, and naturally, Eevee gives us a faster render than Cycles. Of course, I'll say it again, for the music section itself, they fully explain all the details. Again, this is another section that exists. This is for exporting or taking out our output. This is about what resolution we're using here. What is our size, what is our resolution, what is our output format, where is it saved, and so on. All of these are fully covered in the layers section. This is where we specify how many layers there are. These layers are things like color and light. Basically, what indicator does it have, which part can we adjust or use its settings. The section for creating a scene, basically it's the part where in Premiere we say we're creating a sequence, or in After Effects we say we're creating a composition. In English mode, this is where you can have a separate scene for each of your frames. Now, where does this go? In this section, when I click on the duplicate option, it gives me a new scene. Here I can create my next work on a new page or not. I go back to the previous frame, and if I don't want the previous work, I delete it. Oops, I deleted it by mistake. I delete this one. Okay, in this tool, we call this, the scene is currently set to camera. You can set it to object or the cube or other sections. Word, actually it's the background section. It's your image, so if at any point you go into the render section or actually into different sections, it tells you whether you want your background to be the sky, or if you want to give it a color or create its own specific color settings. Collections are basically the group creation section and actually the settings we work with to create collections. Usually each collection contains a camera, a cube, and a light. For example, here I added a circle. If this has been added to my collection and I don't want it, I can just press delete. Up to this part, there was a complete section that belonged to the interface or the workspace. From this part onward, everything relates to the object section. When I click on any of them, it shows its own specific properties. Even if I click on this part or select the camera, it doesn't count as part of the object section. Objects include the sections that you add directly here into your specific machine learning model. The next option is modifier. We work with this section a lot. It's one of the biggest sections that we use from the very first Blender session to the last one. For example, in Blender, if I want to bevel or mirror or do something else to an object, we use it for those tasks. Or actually, if I want to cut or do a loop cut or add a skin, basically all the editing we do is with this section. As we go further, you'll understand where and when each of these is useful for you. Okay, the particles section is where you can create a format for your part. For example, I can create hair here or actually make a grass format. I shape my object, and for any part I want to add, I use the plus sign, and to remove I use the minus sign. Alright, in the next section, as the name suggests, physics is where you can, for example, create a liquid simulation or set up some kind of fluid effect. You can effectively shape your various collections, meticulously move them around, skillfully apply diverse techniques, and ultimately make comprehensive use of them. This particular section is one that we frequently and extensively use for detailed simulations. This applies specifically for advanced techniques, or more precisely, for the intricate shaders we intend to color and render. Then we create a texture and animate it. We work with this part. Okay, the next section option. Constraint is actually a combination of object and modifier. Later, as we work together, we'll see the relationship between these two and use it here. Alright, Now we get to the data section. The data section is where your meshes are, right here where the object exists and all these lines are created. You can group these meshes here. You need to click this, and actually this is the section where you can create a group. Now, where and how you use this I'll explain fully in the next sessions. Alright, the next section this is the essential section where you can assign a specific color to your subject or make it beautifully metallic or meticulously adjust its intricate shading and then carefully set it up and ultimately create it. We call this material. Basically, we assign a material to our objects, and the last section is for our textures where we add textures to the work or forms that we create. For example, they give it a wood grain or a stone texture and work with those. Before I finish this session, let me mention this part as well. Guys, this section shows you the object in wireframe mode, meaning it displays it as lines. The next option is the solid mode, which basically creates a layout in a gray color. The next option, as you can see, is shading. It displays the object in a shaded mode. This means that in this section you can add color and display your color. Do you see? This was the selection, it's selected. And this last one is the rendering section. When you want to render your work, you set the material to render mode. Now, I'll go back to the layout and press Ctrl+Z. Alright friends, I select this, go to the layout section, and then click on this option. This option actually mirrors your image, so you can see behind your image as well. Remember, in the next sessions we'll talk about it in detail. In this session I covered it thoroughly. The entire tool menu. Actually, I wanted to explain the user interface and workspace to you, and then you can move on to objects and how to use them, using the objects. If you're new to my channel, please like and leave a comment. Rest assured I'll reply to each and every one of your comments, and don't forget to hit the bell icon too, so you won't miss any of my upcoming tutorials.